Hey y'all, welcome back to Elevated Perspectives podcast. I have a super special one for you today. So, when Justin and I were first trying to figure out how exactly we could be a nomadic family, we came across Fro Family Travels. And today I get to sit down in a very full circle moment and full circle conversation with Chinique Gordon of Fro Family Travels. So, this is super exciting. We get to talk about everything from how she and her husband AJ cleared over $20,000 in debt, passive income streams, giving birth in Mexico, and what it's like to just be a nomadic mom out here raising free babies. So this one's super exciting. I think it's actually going to be broken down into two parts because we got to talking as friends do. But I really hope that you enjoy this. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things, and go follow Chinique and her family so that y'all can keep up with that and get some good information on passive income streams. You don't have to in Mexico anymore.
We're good.
You are.
Yeah.
Y'all are, so tell me, y'all are, Amal's a citizen.
He's a Mexican citizen.
He's a Mexican
He's our little
citizen.
Mexican.
I love it, man. So I'll tell you, I've said this a lot recently. I wanted to have Whitley in Mexico.
I told you.
You did. It was like you and like 2 or 3 other like travel expat moms. You were like, do it. And I'm like, Justin, we have to have her. And he's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, but my mom friend said, and he's just like, absolutely not. And now every chance I get, I'm just like, she could have been Mexican. And he's just like, well, she's not. And I'm like, she could have been. She could have been.
It's a big decision. It's huge. I get it. I do.
I think because we had her at home, though somewhere in my head too, I'm like, it would have been
the same thing.
It just would have been the same. It would have been a different living room, babe. It would have been the same thing. I don't know. But he had, I don't know. We didn't, which is fine anyway. But I'm still have the tiniest bits of saltiness over it still. I know. Every time I say that, I think it's gonna be a joke, and then I hear that I'm still like a little salty about it, which is super. Again, he's gonna edit this out because he thinks I'm ridiculous. But okay, so y'all had a mall in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. So what I'm curious about. Okay, let me lean in. I'm curious about several aspects of this because you've birthed in 2 very different countries, and I'm gonna assume you had like an institution or a hospital birth with Tashi.
Yeah.
And then I know with the mall, that's like a whole story.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
both of them were. But yes.
They both were.
They both were. Oh yeah.
They were like,
Very
not
dramatic.
gonna make it easy on you.
Very dramatic.
I had dramatic births too. We'll have to do this after because I swear both of my kids were like. I thought with Xavier, I was like, there's no way this could be more dramatic and inconvenient. And then Whitley came, and I was like, okay, sibling rivalry started earlier. Okay, but talk to us a little bit. So what is that like? Like just birthing in different places. And then I'm sure people had a lot to say about you, or maybe they didn't, about you having them all in Mexico. Like what did that kind of decision-making process look like?
So we were in Ghana when I found out that I was pregnant. And we had actually thought that we might make Ghana the base. So that was the thing. In our head, Ghana was going to be the base.
Yeah.
We had a lot of challenges in Ghana that made us second think that, and we were like, actually, and then I found out I was pregnant, and it was like, okay, cool, yeah, no, this isn't where we're supposed to be. Because, I don't know, we both knew that this baby was not going to be born in London. I can't say specifically why, but it just felt like, no, we're not. We don't have a desire to remain in London. Right. So it was just not really an option for us. I think our family did say, okay, so when are you coming back? And we were like, coming back?
What do you mean?
Yeah. No, that's not going to happen. It was never an option for us. For us, the only thing was, where do we give birth? Where do we have this baby? We did consider, because at this point, we were very much felt obligated to the continent, to being in Africa. We were like, it'd be amazing to give birth in the motherland. But then I was like, why do we feel we have to be here? There's this struggle. There's also this struggle that's happening that I feel like a lot of the diaspora feel like they have to make this pilgrimage to Africa, which I admire anyone that does, and if that's what they want to do. But I'm not really a fan of this obligation, like we feel we have to be in Africa anymore. I felt it, and that's one of the reasons why we did go to Ghana, but then we let that go ultimately, and we were like, there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of challenges that come with wherever you choose to live, to be honest. A different set of challenges that we felt when we were in the motherland, and we felt that was kind of holding us there. So we were looking at countries in Africa originally. We were looking at countries that give birthright citizenship. So that would automatically make our baby a citizen of that country, automatically by being born there. And there are a number in Africa that allow that. But then we were like, no, then we have to, if we do that, Ghana and Morocco were the only countries that we'd lived in at that point, and we were like, you don't get birthright citizenship in Ghana, and we were like, if we do that, we have to get used to a new country. I am not, and I had a very difficult pregnancy with Amal. I had morning sickness, pretty much right throughout my whole pregnancy, literally like physically being sick. And I was like, I need things to be as easy as possible. Because this has not been easy. That's not going to happen if we have to get used to a brand new country, learn how the country work, and still parent Taji all at the same time, not doing it. How about we revisit the other countries we've already been to? And that's what led us to Mexico. Mexico was the first country that we immediately felt comfortable on day one. Like, we stepped into the country, like put our things down, went out, and it was like, yeah, we like it here, we're cool, we can find our way around, and it's easy enough for us to live here. We always felt very drawn to Mexico.
Mexico is special. I don't even know exactly what it is. Mexico is special because you can say, the weather, the food, the people, the this, the that, but there's just this like undercurrent here where it's like, I know I'm good. Yeah. Which is why it's so nuts to me when people are like, it's so dangerous, cartel this, cartel that. And I'm like, have you been?
Exactly.
Have you been?
Most people that say that haven't. So yeah, we kept feeling this pull to come back to Mexico, and we'd already been twice by now. And Mexico do give birthright citizenship, so it kind of made sense. It was like, we've been there a couple of times before, we know our way around, we had friends there as well, so it was like, yeah, Mexico feels right, let's go back to Mexico. So and we had one of our friends that we met on our way out of Mexico last time had given birth. So we also had someone we knew that had experience of giving birth abroad and had a positive experience. Yeah. That was it for me. That was all I needed.
And dusted.
Yeah.
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 That's lovely. I know. So when you made this decision, so your family's like, when are you coming back to have the baby here? And you're like, we're not going to do that. You go through the process. You're like, okay, Mexico is it. What kind of, I guess, preparations, what kind of things do you need to have in place? Like, how did you find like a care team you're comfortable with? Like all of that stuff. Because like you're a second-time mom now, so you know how things work. But there are some first-time moms that are maybe traveling or considering giving birth abroad. Like, what does that look like in a foreign country, setting everything up?
I think, like I said, because we'd had a friend that had given birth in Mexico, that immediately made us feel comfortable with looking into the team that she used. And here in Playa del Carmen, there's a plethora of options. of, you know, how you can birth your baby depending on what you want. And that's one of the reasons why I love Mexico, is you can still have the birth that you want, whether you want that to be at home, and our intention was to have a home birth, whether you want that to be a home birth, whether you want to have a hospital birth, a birth center birth. All that exists here in, you know, plenty of places, and it doesn't have to be a public hospital. There are private hospitals, there are centers, like there's so many choices. And there's, what I love about Playa del Carmen in particular is the community that's here. It is so easy to reach out to people and just ask about, you know, people about their experiences. You know, if you want a doula, anyone have any research, all you have to do is ask, and you'll find what you're looking for. And so, you know, thankfully we did have a friend here already who had, you know, had a great experience. And so we just went through the center that she used. And Salud Primal, the birth center that we chose to use, they offer, exactly like I said, you have all the options. They will support you through whatever birth you want to have. And
I love that.
I feel that's one of the reasons why I love the fact that we gave birth in Mexico, is because I feel like in the UK it would have been like, we're going to tell you what kind of birth you're going to have.
I was just about to ask. We were teeing up home births for Whitley and Xavier, and I remember with Whitley, I went to like the first doctor appointment, like literally the first one, like 8-10 weeks. And they started, you know, hospital this, doctor that. And I was like, oh, you know, we're actually going to have her at home. I had my first at home. I feel comfortable. It's going to be chill. And after I left the appointment, they called me and they're basically like, hey, we can't see you anymore because we don't support home births. And I'm like, well, I never asked y'all to come into my home. Like, I have a doula and a midwife who's literally like a nurse at Emory, which is like a big hospital. I'm like, I'm good on that. Like, I just kind of need y'all to, you know, I don't know, do the ultrasounds and stuff. And they're just like, yeah, we don't do that. So I'm just like, because I'm high risk, because I want to have the baby at home, you're going to refuse me care. You're going to refuse to see me. Because I'm gonna, I don't know. It was a whole thing.
You were high risk because you wanted to have the baby at home.
Yeah, it's like some sort of like liability thing. So I'm high risk for them. Not that anything's gonna happen to me.
Exactly.
I'm chilling. I've already even done this before. Like, it's fine. But they're just like a liability. I don't know. It was so weird. And so then I'm like, okay, let me try to find someone else. And there were like maybe 2 other practices I called, and they're like, yeah, we don't support home births. And again, I'm like, I never invited you into my home for the birth. Like, you can literally just put a Doppler on my belly and like I can go about my business. And they're just like, no. And so after that, I was just like, okay, well, I literally have a midwife and a doula. I guess we'll just do this the old-fashioned way. So I had like 1 doctor appointment with Whitley, and that was it for like the entirety of my pregnancy, because they made it difficult to go see a doctor.
That's
so
crazy.
And that's part of why I asked, like with the UK, I know there are like a lot of parallels, but also a lot of differences, right, with how your medical system and things work. So looking at what prenatal care and all that kind of stuff looks like in the UK versus in Mexico, like what are the differences there, and then also the similarities?
The biggest difference, I guess, for us, like I said, it's the treatment. In the UK, I feel like it's they would say advised. You know, you're basically told what kind of birth you're going to have. You know, and it's like, yeah, you could do this, or no, you can't do that. We intended to have a birth center birth with Taji as well. That was a plan, and that was fine. But it is literally like, you know, depending on the birth, how your previous birth was, is like, okay, so we're going to do this time. You know, whereas I felt like here in Mexico, when we had our first midwife appointment, you know, she asked us to talk through our experience of our birth with Taji. And, you know, I thought that was kind of the first thing that I noticed, is in the UK, there was kind of like no debrief of, you know, how your birth experience went and maybe why it went that way. You know, because we ended up, it was a forceps birth in the end. And we didn't talk about like that conversation with the midwife in Mexico was the first time we'd actually spoken about why that happened, why it got there.
And I assume that has to be emotional, but also healing.
Everything, things made sense.
Yeah.
It finally made sense.
I have a friend that had a baby in June, her second baby. And with her firstborn, it was a whole a spiral of interventions that led to a C-section. And then with her second one, she's basically like, I'm going to take my power back.
Yeah.
And so she actually had the same midwife and doula team that I have. And we went to high school together, and I love her so much, and her baby's so cute. And anyway, but she wound up having this like beautiful, magical, like healing second birth experience. And she's like, it's not even so much about what actually happened in the birth. It's the fact that like I was listened to and I felt heard and I felt empowered and I was able to step into like motherhood with my second in a completely different way than with the first. And I hear that a lot about like out of institution births in like the US, the UK, and Canada. And then also I've heard several things like about from people who have given birth like in Mexico or in other countries where they're like, oh, you're a human. Let me treat you like a human.
That absolutely was the biggest difference, is the fact that we had a midwife that genuinely cared about me. It wasn't just the baby as a statistic and all the rest of it. It was like, well, let's debrief from the first, what can we learn from that first experience, and what kind of birth do you want to have this time round? It was like, she literally just put all the power in my hands.
That's beautiful.
And it was like, gonna be honest, yes, birth can take, a different direction than we plan, and we can talk about, what else could happen and plan for that, but ultimately, I'm here to support you and your decision. This is your birth. And she was very insistent on making that clear. This is your birth, and I'm just here to assist in any way that I can. So the team at CU Premal were amazing. So that's the biggest difference, I would say. The next biggest difference was finances, because of course in the UK we have the NHS, which sometimes can be a bit of a mess, but I'm of course very grateful for the fact that you pay through your taxes and stuff, but essentially you don't pay out of pocket for at all, apart from maybe prescriptions. So yes, this time round we had to pay. That was a first. We didn't pay for Tashi's birth, so that was a new experience.
At all?
We have the NHS. We don't pay.
I see. I know, but it's one of those things where I feel like you say to like you say these things to Americans, and like in our head it translates automatically to like deep discount or like very like little.
Tashi's birth was $0.
There are threads of American mothers showing the hospital bills that arrive after and it's like $50
to hold your baby.
Literally, it'll be like, oh, immediate skin to skin, that's gonna be $1,000, or like, oh, dad wants to do skin to skin, that's $1,500.
Well, I can't even
you want the baby to sleep in your room versus the nursery? It's gonna be like $300, and I'm just like, oh my god, because I didn't have that experience with either, so like it's odd to me. Like we did have to pay out of pocket for doula and midwifery services for both of them, but I see the bills that come from like hospital births, and I'm just like, they didn't give y'all a coupon when you left. Like there's not, it's just I don't know, I'm sorry, that part's always just wild to me though, because on the one hand it's like they're paying so much, but on the other hand it's like you're paying nothing. Like both of those just seem like super wild into the spectrum.
So I guess it was the opposite for us, in that we didn't have to pay anything for Tashi's birth, and now for Amal we got to pay for everything. So that was very, very new. It was a bit of a shock. I mean, but at the same time, we've had experience with needing to use a hospital before, so we're not new to paying out for healthcare services. So it was a bit of a shock, but not too much. My friends, that was I think the biggest shock to like our friends and family. They were like, "Wait, you're gonna pay to give birth?" Why would you do that? When you have the option of doing it for free in the UK. But like I was trying to explain to them, like when we pay our tax, okay, the NHS is not free. We say it's free.
Right.
It is not free. We have our national insurance. That is how we pay for our healthcare service. When you're salaried, whether you're self-employed, depending on how much you earn, it's a percentage of how much you earn. Of course, it's that way so that those who earn the least can still take advantage of full services without having to pay extra. However,
you hear that, America? Makes sense.
However, we still pay, and one of my friends asked. She was like, "Oh, that must have been really hard." But I'm like, But based on, and I literally did the calculation, I'm like, based on how much I was earning when I was working in education in the UK, how much I paid in national insurance was the equivalent to what? Literally, it was basically about the same amount as what I paid to give birth to a mom.
Yeah.
Like, it was about £3,500-ish, £4,000 almost.
And that's not even, I'm trying to remember how much it was with our kids. I think even our midwifery, I think even for the midwife and the doula, both back in the States, I think it was somewhere between like $400 and like $5,500.
I've heard a lot of
maybe
Americans,
$4,000 to like $6,000, somewhere around there.
Americans have said it's still the same as their out-of-pocket expenses.
Yeah, because by the time if you have a copay, like every time you go to the doctor's office or something, you have to pay for the specialized tests and stuff, like it adds up.
So that was for everything, like for the whole experience. We do have emergency healthcare insurance or emergency insurance, but that doesn't cover giving birth or pregnancy at all. So we did pay completely out of pocket, and it was about £3,500-ish. So about $5,000.
Just like not bad at all.
For everything I had in Mexico, I had 2 or 3 ultrasounds maybe, and probably about 4 to 5 midwife appointments as well, and then we paid for the birth center birth. So I did all the work at the birth center, got to pushing stage, and then decided I needed to have a C-section. So we also did have to pay for a C-section birth as well. So it was more expensive than we expected because of that reason. But it was even just like having this, just going through like transitioning from the birth center to the C-section. I felt that this wasn't going to be a natural birth. Something didn't feel right about the experience that I was having at the birth center, and so much to the surprise of my team, because they felt like I was there and ready to give birth right there in the center, I was like, no, we need to go to hospital right now, I'm done. This isn't going to work. And it was a good thing, because when we got to the hospital, I didn't find this out again until we had a bit of a debrief with the midwife after, and she said when we got to the hospital that Amal's heart rate was dropping, and that we actually got there right in time, because if it had been left any longer, then things could have taken a very different turn.
Oh God.
It turns out that I had a fibroid which wasn't picked up in my ultrasounds at all, that was preventing Amal from descending down the canal. So a natural birth would not have been possible. And somehow I knew that it wasn't going to happen.
Listen to your body.
I listened to
and
my
you
body.
had that space to listen to your body, which is incredible.
And even like my midwife said, she was like, I've never had an experience like that. She was like, we've never had a mother that's like she's like, usually if intervention is needed, it's because they can see something has changed. And they would usually say, look, I think we need to, go to the hospital. But she was like, this is the first time that a mother has said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. We need to go to the hospital. And she was like, it's like the first time that she's actually seen like a mother actually make that decision and was fully right in making that decision to change. So even though I had a C-section birth, which was completely not what I wanted, it ended up being the perfect decision for our situation, because like I said, it could have been a completely different scenario otherwise. And again, that like, it just goes back to being in, I guess in terms of my physical, I presented as a completely healthy, normal, birthing person, and there would be no need for a C-section. And I wonder what that could have looked like in the UK, getting to that stage. Because I think when I actually, it's interesting, we talked about these dramatic stories. When I was birthing Taji, same thing happened. I felt like I couldn't push. And I was saying to the midwives, I feel like I need a C-section. They were like, yeah, that's not an option.
It's what?
Yeah, they were like, no. They just said, no, we can't do that. No. And I was like, no, I need... And actually, and that's why I'm saying this whole debrief thing was really empowering because it turned out, again, it was this fibroid that was stopping Tashi from descending as well. So we didn't do an emergency C-section with her, but it was essentially the same thing. Yeah, so that's kind of another thing that was just very, very different, is just not being told and actually being listened to.
That's
and
incredible.
It was very, like, I remember getting very, very emotional. Like, I didn't know that Amar's heart rate was dropping until after the midwife told us afterwards. So it was very, very empowering knowing that I was able to listen to my body, and my team around me supported me in that decision.
Such magic.
Right?
Such magic. I have these kids now, and now I'm just a birth advocate. And people are like, what does that even mean? And I'm like, I don't know. I just want people to have good experiences.
Yeah.
And so I'm always fascinated about what that looks like, different places and for different people who have like different babies, because it is one of those things that like we have to think about, especially if you're someone, even if you don't like know for sure if you want to have kids, or maybe you're pregnant for that first time. There's so much fear surrounding that whole experience, even the way that it's shown in movies and TV, where people are screaming and crying, I hate you, and you know, and it's like a whole thing, and it's just like, that's what you've been shown, but like, what do you want it to be?
Yeah.
And I think that like highlighting the fact that like there are options, and again, like especially the U.S., like our like maternal, you know, mortality rates, and especially for Black women, especially for Black women, like in the South where I'm from, like it's such a problem.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things too where it's like other options are out there.
Exactly.
Like for lifestyles, for birthing, for even finding partners, for like the single folks that can't, you know, get it together, for all kinds of stuff. Like you've got to look. Yeah. You know, you've got to want it.
And be open to it.
And be open
as
to
well.
it.
I think being open has been one of the biggest life lessons of our entire journey. Is there is so much possibility than you can even comprehend right now. I remember, like I said, I make spreadsheets now, and I had someone, my spreadsheet income is passive, mostly passive. And I had someone say she loves my spreadsheet. She wanted one to be customized for her business. Generally, I don't do customizations. Like I said, it's a passive income for me. So I'm like, I don't want to create anything extra.
Right.
Like, I just sit back and the money comes. But not because I didn't necessarily want to do it, but more because I was like, do you know how much I'm going to have to quote you to like personalize this for you, you know? And I was like, I remember saying to AJ, like, I don't even think I'm going to message her back, because the amount of money that I'd have to charge her to do it. And I think I said something like that in my reply, like, not to be funny, but it's going to, you know, run into several hundreds. Most people only spend like £10-20 on a spreadsheet for me. And I'm like, this is going to be potentially £500-600. I don't know, you know, and that's before I know exactly what you need. And then she was like, try me.
Oh.
Yeah, she was like, whatever it is, this is what I want, and I know I want you to do it for me. And I was like, wait, I didn't know that people would spend like almost £1,000 on a spreadsheet.
Wow, yeah.
You know, it's just I was like, let's just be open to the idea. And she was, and actually I just did another spreadsheet for her last weekend. I've now opened another avenue I didn't even know was possible.
Right. I love that. I know people talk about whether you're like an expat or you travel nomadically or whatever, people that travel have this notion of like how good it is for you, and not just vacation, which is fine too. We love a good resort, but like travel, right? Like immersion, being out here in the streets with the people trying and things. And there's this notion of like, you know, how it just broadens perspectives. It opens doors. Like if you are in a receptive posture while you're somewhere new, you will see and experience and hear and become, you know, integrated with so many different things that maybe weren't possibilities before, you just never would have thought of. And I think like in traveling nomadically and particularly raising kids this way, I'm so excited to see like the kinds of doors that are open in their brain that I, even with my, big woo spiritual brain, that I wouldn't have even considered. I think that's one of the like larger gifts that this kind of lifestyle affords them, is just the capacity to be open to stuff.
I love it. I 100% agree. It's the same for us as well. Taji is near fluent in Spanish now. Like, I hear her talking to her friends. I can't even participate in those conversations. I cannot. Sometimes she says things to me and I'm like, in English, please. It's scary now. She can actually like curse me out if she wants, and I wouldn't know. I would have no idea. She is pretty much fluent now. Like, just rapid conversations in Spanish. Like, we were saying this the other day, we're like, she now, once she is of age, if she chooses to work or, chooses to do business, she can do that in 2 languages now.
Yeah. The world is so open for her.
If you have 100 options, 100 has now become 200 options for her because she can do it in 2 languages. Same with Amal. He has 2 passports now. He has the option. Taji too. She has permanent residency here as well. She can live in Mexico. She can live in the UK if she wants to. Double the amount of options than we would have originally said was available. I just love that it just opens, like you said, it opens doors, the possibilities, and this is us just getting started.
Yeah, y'all have made their worlds so big.
I hope so.
You've made them so big, and it's incredible. It really, really is. And I know, like, we're getting to the point where all of this sort of like just feels like life to us. And so I imagine that can happen to y'all too. But like, truly, like, it's incredible. Like how big you've made their world, and like how bright you've made their future. It's like the options. And I said to Justin the other day, I'm like, even if they, or Whitley, they grow up and they decide they don't want to do anything else but like sell ice cream on a beach and just have like a slow, peaceful life.
Yeah.
The fact that we were able to give them that option, especially when there's so many people. I know the US is like this, the UK is like this, like so many countries where it's like that rat race, right? From the time kids are very little, it's just like, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a job, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do that. And now they wind up in a box because their world was made small. There was only that one trajectory. It's amazing being able to raise kids where it's like multiple countries, multiple languages, all these experiences. They can do what they want and go all these places and learn all these skills and sports and hobbies and like,
and just to be able to think for themselves and make that decision. Taji, she goes to school part-time, and just for her to wake up and be like, I don't want to go to school today, which she does do from time to time. She decides she loves her family. She's like, I want to stay with my family. I don't want to go to school. That was never an option for us. No. I don't want to go to school.
It's like, what is your temperature? Do you need to go to the doctor?
If I didn't want to go to school, I would have to lie and say I'm sick. Taji doesn't have to lie. Like, she just says, I don't want to go to school. Okay, all right, I guess we're not going to school today. What do you want to do instead? That, like, just to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah.
That was never an option for us as children. I love that now we're empowering her to think for herself. And she doesn't have to do anything to please us, because it's not about us. What does she want to do? And we're just here to assist her in her journey. And support her in that way. And I love that. I love that for her as well.
Having created a life where she can say, I don't want to go to school today, I can hang out with y'all. And y'all have the freedom to actually hang out, instead of like, well, you have to because I have to work.
That's the other thing.
Or you can, but you're going to have to be sat in front of the TV all day because I have to go do this or do that. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah. That's the other thing. And is, like you said, just the fact that we can support that as well. And as a minimum, she'll always have one parent at least that, like, you know, we do have to work. We do still have active income, but at least one of us can be with her all the time. She can be with her brother all the time, which she wants to be. You know, the fact that's even an option. Our parents, you know, my mum's a singer. She was away a lot. You know, not going to work would mean not earning money. You know, and that wasn't an option. And Taji doesn't have to think about that. So it's awesome. Yeah, it's I feel very grateful that we can gift that to her, to them. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I know there's a lot of, that's another thing that I think we get a lot is people do the thing where they're like, but what about the kids? Mm-hmm. They're like, you want to go traveling and gallivanting, you want to go to these dangerous cartel places, but what about the kids? And I'm literally like, look at the kids.
Yeah.
Like, the kids are thriving.
Yeah.
The kids are flourishing. The kids are happy and healthy, running around, learning new languages and trying new foods and having experiences that a lot of people don't get till they're in their, you know, 30s or like 40s. Like, the kids are good. I promise. Like, the kids are okay.
Right.
But I think, I don't know, I guess that does beg the question though, like, what is the adjustment period like? So I know y'all have been sat in Playa for like a year and a half, coming up on 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And so prior to that, it was just the three of you. There was no Amal yet, which I'm sure is like super wild because I think about like a time before Whitley and I'm like, what time before Whitley? But when you are in a state of like moving, especially that like faster motion where you have like that, you know, 2-3 months somewhere, what does the adjustment period for her look like?
It depends, I guess. I would say it depends on the time zone, especially. You know, when we're sticking kind of within a time zone, if we were like within Europe, we were within Asia, we're not changing time zone. So, you know, especially when they're that young, you're thinking about kind of naps and, you know, kind of sleeping patterns. And that can be heavily disrupted if you're having to move time zone. So if we're moving, you know, from Europe to Asia, you could be 5-6 hours difference. That's quite significant for a 2 or 3 year old. And so that would be an adjustment, and that could, we used to say, I think, that it would take us 3 weeks to settle. Yeah. And, you know, kind of in terms of to get the sleeping patterns back into a routine, to get ourselves familiar with the surroundings. This is where we're going to go shopping. This is how much it costs roughly, you know, to eat out. 3 weeks was kind of the average time we would take to settle into an environment, I would say. But like I said, mostly it would depend on if we were remaining in the same time zone or if we were having to change time zones.
Yeah, those time zone switches are rough. Remember, we went to Spain, and that's 6 hours off from the East Coast. Yeah. And, oh no, this is when we were in Guadalajara, so that was like 7 hours, I think. Maybe 8 hours, depending on like the time of the year and stuff. But anyway, we got the seats where you can lay flat, and I was like, okay, if we leave, and then the kids just sleep the whole way, and I had the whole plan. Xavier is a Virgo, and he tends to be, he can get like wired in a special kind of way. And so he woke up like mid-flight and was awake the whole time we were there. I hardly slept on the flight. Wow. And so then we landed in Spain, and he and I are both just like hype beasts for no reason. So we're just like, we're jet lag proof, and we're like running around the airport and jumping off of stuff and doing like parkour in the streets of Madrid. And then I think we went to bed like a little early, like 6 p.m. local time that night, and we slept into like 3 p.m. the next day and woke up like, oh, we're not as jet lag proof as we thought we were. But yeah, those first couple of days with time zone shifts are rough. And then I think even we've been here for a few weeks now, and like you said, like about that like 3 week mark, like depending on what's going on, it does take time, because I think we just even picked like our favorite like grocery store within walking distance, and so we're like, okay, pattern, routine, structure, these sorts of things. And I think now at this point when we're out, you know, Zay is like, are we, you know, going home now? And I'm like, yeah. And you know what, I think I struggle with that a bit. I think I struggle.
Home.
Yeah. That whole thing around like, do I want to tell him this is home or because, and for context, so Xavier will be 4 next month. And we've been doing this for like just over a year now. So since he was 3. So like he gets that like we travel around and we're on airplanes and sometimes we're here and sometimes we're there. But lately he's been like, are we going to live here? And I'm kind of like, yeah, baby, we're going to live here for another couple months. And then we're going to go here and then there. And then we'll see, like, where do you want to live? You know, I try to stay curious with it. Like, where do you want to live? Like, do you like it here? Like, where'd you like, you know? And I don't know, but I think that's the thing now that he's kind of like a kid and not like a toddler. Because when we started, he was 2. He was still a toddler, you know, and Whitley, she's 10 weeks. She doesn't know what's going on, you know what I mean? So she's just now starting to kind of like, oh, we're in different places. But I think that notion of like home is something that we've been talking more about lately. And even Justin and I amongst ourselves, like, how are we going to kind of, you know, present this to him? And you can say, so home is wherever the people you care about are. And like, there's truth to that. But I think for his like 4-year-old brain, it's like definitely a building. So I don't know. How do you, because Taji is she 6 yet?
She just turned 6.
She just turned 6. So how does she how do those notions present for her?
I think she still has a traveler's heart. She was 9 months old when we left the UK. So moving around is all she's ever known.
Where did she take her first steps?
London.
London?
Back in London. We were back in London.
She waited to come back.
We were back in London. We were in Spain trying to get her, and she'd take like, you know, she wouldn't quite let go. Yeah. But when she actually walked, we were in London. That's funny. She walked to my sister. Well, she was walking to her dad. My sister was singing to her to encourage her to walk. That's sweet. So back in London.
That's funny. And I know we had bets out on Whitley's first steps because when she got around that age, I think we were in like, it was like Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and the US all within the course of like just a few months. Yeah. And so we were kind of like, where's it going to be? Where's it going to be? Where's it going to be? She chose Brazil. And I was like, I was thinking it was going to be Colombia, but yeah.
But yeah, she's, it's all she's known is, you know, moving around. And even within Mexico here, you know, now, this time round, we're in our 3rd accommodation in the last year and a half. And so she still does this. When we go to our next place, I want this. You know, can we make sure there's a swimming pool? Can we make sure there's a playground? You know, when we go, so a lot of the time she talks in the future present, in the we're going to move again. Like, I don't think she has the idea that we're settled.
It's like a given for her.
We're gearing up to move. We're always gearing up to go somewhere. Still, for her, even though we've been in Mexico for a year and a half now, but we've lived in different parts of Playa del Carmen. And so the longest, like I said before, the longest time we spent in Mexico was about 9 or 10 months. That was when we did the border run. And that place is considered real Mexico to Taji because that was the longest time that we'd spent anywhere.
That's funny. Zay does something like that with Guadalajara. Really? Yeah, where like he'll almost talk about like Mexico and like Guadalajara like they're different places.
Yeah, Taji
because
does that.
To him, he's like, yeah, my school back in Guadalajara.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's like, are we in Mexico or are we going to go to Guadalajara?
Yeah,
and I'm like,
does that.
Baby, it's all, like, I've shown him a map. I'm like, baby, it's all the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, but he has this concept that that's like some, special place, right? That's like set apart from the rest of the country.
Exactly. I guess depending on what experiences they had in that place. But so she does that. She says, and we still visit that neighborhood sometimes when we were there. And she's like, oh, we're in real Mexico now. Yay, real Mexico. So that definitely happens from time to time. But yeah, so I think she's still in traveler mode. She still expects that we're going to get up and move somewhere else. And we haven't really said to her, you know, we're going to stay here. This is the base for now. I guess we haven't officially had that conversation with her. I don't know if we really had the conversation with ourselves, to be honest. But, you know, I think because we never know. We
Right.
never, you know, even going back to London, like I said, we're going back to London next week, and we even kind of briefly toyed with the idea, you know, what do we think about going back to London? Is that on the cards? Would we consider doing that? You know, we never really know.
Yeah.
We never really know. So we have an idea of what we like, but I think, like I said, because we're just so open to the fact that at any moment things can change. You know, we've had health. AJ was in hospital at the end of 2020. Things can always change. We know that, you know, nothing is guaranteed. And we just really try to remain as present as possible. And so it's very hard to define settles and, you know, being in one place that we kind of just don't too much. We have an idea of what we would like, but nothing is concrete, and we're okay with that. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
That's very true. I think we're in the same place. I think we do this thing where it's like, okay, do we want to like settle somewhere, or are we just gonna like travel forever? Like, what about like school for the kids? Like, do we want to like buy property anywhere, or is it fine to like rent, have the flex? And we do this all the time, and people ask us all the time, and I think it's just a thing of like, I don't have good answers for y'all. Like,
At all.
we're just vibing, you know? Like, we're just vibing. I can keep you updated along the way, but like, I'm not going to make any promises that I'm going to be here or be there for a set period of time. Like, we're just, you know, we're just doing what we do.
Yeah, people always ask. We've had friends asking, you know, about coming to visit, and I've been like, I mean, you know, they're like, are you going to be here in November? I'm like, maybe, I don't know. Like, look at your own risk. Like, I don't know. Like, we think so, but just know that we may not be. Like, I expect we will be, but we'll see. Like, I don't want to promise anything anymore. We can't. You literally cannot promise the future. You do not know what is going to happen in the future. Anything beyond this current moment is an unknown.
It is. It is.
Everything.
And I think we've seen a lot. I think in the past, like, it's been somewhere around like all year, but I think we've experienced this over and over and over again, where we try to arrange our plans because of outside things.
Pressures.
Right?
Yep.
And something always is just off kilter about it, or something goes wrong, or oh my god, I have this horror story. I'll tell you this after. We got stranded in Cancun for like a week and a half last year because of OVO Fest up in Canada. We were up there for like Caravana, and we were gonna go see Drake. They wound up canceling. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But the moral of the story is we rearranged our plans because of something external, and it wound up just being this whole shit show. And like, that's happened almost consistently every single time. We've rearranged what we were going to do anyway for some outside stuff. And then the outside stuff doesn't unfold the way that we anticipated. And it's just kind of like, well, so I said to Justin, I think just the other day we were talking about, we were like, this is the last time. Never doing this again. Everything else, like external, is just going to have to like catch up to where we are or not.
Absolutely. Even we were talking about coming back to London, and my cousin's getting married, and because this last time we were in London 2 years ago, we said don't expect us to come back to London. We don't know if we will do, we don't know when we will do. You know, my cousin planned to get married, and he's like, because he was a groomsman for our wedding, and I think I'm making an assumption, I think he had the idea that he would have liked me to be a part of his or his wife's bridal party. And he's like, you know, are you going to come? And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. You know, I literally said to him, I'm like, plan as if we're not going to be there.
And you're a Libra too, aren't you?
I am.
You're a Libra. Yeah, Justin and I are both Libra. And I think that makes it exacerbates it even more, because it's not just that it's like indecisiveness though. It's like, it's this desire for freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it winds up looking like we're indecisive. We're just like, don't know, not sure, can't decide.
Yeah,
and it's not that.
I'm not
it's
trying
just,
to be like that.
I need to be able to move how I feel called to move. And I don't want you putting expectations
don't hold
on what I'm doing.
That's exactly it.
So, like, it'll be real serendipitous if it works out that way.
Yeah,
but like, you know, let it be a fun surprise.
Exactly. And we've done that. We've just popped up and it's like, oh, you're here. Like, we did that for my husband's best friend's wedding as well. We didn't know we were going to be back, and then it turned out we were going to be back, but we didn't want to say that we could be back until we knew for sure. You know, I don't like the idea of now, you know, I don't know, sometimes it feels like, do I have commitment issues? I mean, clearly not. I've been married for like 10 years almost, you know, so clearly not. But sometimes I do have to question myself. I'm like, do I have commitment issues? Because I feel like I find it very difficult to say yes to things now.
Yeah.
But like you said, not because like I'm trying to be indecisive or anything. Like, none of us know what is going to happen. Like, it doesn't make sense to place so much pressure on ourselves to be in certain places, to be a particular type of person when we don't know what we just don't know what it's going to look like.
Right.
So I would rather, like you said, just let it be a fortunate, you know, happenstance if it turns out that way.
No, I feel it deeply, all of it. I also have a thing where I want to be everywhere. I think someone is somewhere. I think one of my friends is in Jamaica right now, and I was talking to her on Instagram. I'm like, I'm so jealous, and she's like, you're literally at the beach in Mexico, and I'm like, I know, but I want to be where you are too. I want both things.
Right?
People, they're nuts. They're like, yeah, I'm planning a trip to Italy. I'm like, oh. And they're just like, what, Courtney? I think that even happened. I was in Amsterdam. Someone else was like in Switzerland. I'm like, oh, I wish you know. And so everyone's sick of me at this point because they're just like, is nowhere good enough for you? And I'm like, it's not that. It's just like, there's all these possibilities and opportunities. I'm hungry to experience everything.
But isn't it that amazing? And I think that's one of the things that still really excites me about this journey is, you know, when people do ask me the question, where are you going next, and you know, what are you about to get into, and I say I don't know, I love it because then I'll go on Skyscanner and I'm like, where could we go? What are the possibilities? What if we did move to this place? You know, it means I'm not closed off to anything anymore. Right. And nothing's, I mean, I still get a little bit scared. I still have the feeling of, you know, being scared and fear, but I'm open to the possibility of something new all the time. I'm happy for change. I can absolutely walk towards it, whereas before I feel like I would have avoided, you know, certain things because what if it fails? What if it all goes wrong? You know, but now that we've taken this leap, things have gone wrong, and you know, we have failed along the way, but I know now that it always works out. Yeah. You know?
I love that. I think there are so many ways in which traveling like this has changed me and just stretched me and grown me, which did not always feel good. But I even remember before we left, there's the whole, you know, purging process, right? We had to get rid of all our stuff, and there's this need to go in a storage unit or, you know, donation and sell the house and all that. And I was pulling out clothes, like shirts that I'd had since middle school.
Oh, wow.
At my big age. At my big age. I'm like, wow, I vividly remember wearing this in 8th grade.
Right.
And it's like, why do I still have it? Like, I was so attached. There was so much I held on to. And I think that like manifested very much in the physical, right? Like I bought this pair of shoes because I thought it would be cute, and now it's been 5 years and I've never worn the shoes. Why are they still in the closet? But also I think there's just certain things like psychologically and emotionally where it was the same thing. There were like whole versions of myself and like things that I thought were like preferences that I had and like all sorts of stuff that now that we've been out and I'm just so much more open as a person, I've had to let go of so much. And it's that process too. There's like a really beautiful sort of just pruning and shedding that I think happens when you travel and you just move and you feel that freedom. And I'm addicted to it now. That's probably part of why I'm just like, I've got to increase the level of chaos, like more travel, more plane, more flights, more, new languages and stuff. And I don't know, but I think it's a lot of fun. And other people don't. They're like, you're super chaotic. This is like really wild what you're doing.
I know, yeah, people do that. They're like, how can you not know? Even, before we'd fully committed to deciding on Mexico to give birth, people were like, how do you not know where you're giving birth? Like, you're literally about to like push out a baby in like a few months. Because we didn't move till we hit Mexico, I want to say in end of January, February. So it was literally like 3.5, just under 4 months before Amal was born. And he was like, why are you not in the place where you're going to give birth? What do you mean? Like, because obviously, in the UK, you're only allowed to travel up until a certain amount of weeks. And it's like, aren't you pushing this a bit? Like, you sure you're going to be able to, like, how? Like, people just cannot comprehend that you could just live so freely.
Yeah.
And, without knowing what's, and it's like, well, we all do it every day, just unconsciously.
Yeah.
We're just doing it consciously.
Right. Most of what you're doing, you're not making all the little itty bitty decisions. Mm-hmm. Even the small things. Every time you brush your nose or like flick your hair or like the route that you take even while you're walking or driving, like you're not actually, you're vibing. So let me vibe consciously. Right. If we vibe unconsciously, let me just vibe consciously. Right. I even think like we went to Europe when I was like super pregnant with Whitley. I was like 35 weeks pregnant when we like took off, and then I was like 2 weeks more pregnant when we came back. And I remember people looking like, you can't just do, what if she's born over there was like the big thing. And I'm like, then I'll push her out over there. Like, what do you mean? Like, but it's always some sort of what if, right? Like, what if you're pickpocketed in Paris? Yeah. Like, well, that's unfortunate. I'll try to prevent it. I'll deal with it if it happens. Exactly. What if you get here and you can't find somewhere to stay? What if, and it's just like, why would I live in that state of like, just fear and panic and like all of this when I can just plan as best as I can? And vibe.
That is it.
Like, why not do, I don't know. It's a lot, but I do think like when you live a lifestyle like this, where you're constantly moving, traveling, growing, adapting, like there just are certain parts of you that are strengthened and developed and heightened.
Yeah, you have to be.
Yeah. And I'm so fortunate for that.
Yeah.
Cut. All right. And now we are joined by my children for the last little bit of this. But so I guess to sort of put a bow on this, if you had to say something to people who either have kids or are considering having kids that want to travel more, whether that's nomadically or expat life, what would you say to them? How does someone make a dream like that into a reality?
You just have to do it.
Me. I know.
Have to do it. Like I said, like, for me, now, there is no future. We are living in the everlasting now. Mm. And all we have is this moment right here. The worst thing, when I often think about regrets and, getting to old age, the worst thing for people, if you want to know what I fear most, I fear living a life of regret. Not the things that I've done, but the things that I didn't do. And if you have a deep desire to live a lifestyle like this, to travel, to move abroad, you need to just move towards it because it's not going to go away. Mm. And all you have is this moment right here. If it's on your heart to do it, it must be for a reason, and I think it's our job to listen to that, lean into that. The internet is your friend. YouTube is your friend. We're here.
And you've created all of these incredible resources, which I can't wait to get my hands on. But you've compiled a manual, right, for people so that they don't have to do this multi-tab, multi-browser search for this sort of thing.
There's so many resources around, and so many more of us doing it now. So